Uh, Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Pick Your Brains. I'm very, very excited to do this episode in particular because it's my first episode back after a long while. I had to take a little break because of the show I did a couple of months ago. Well, yeah, 2 months ago. And then we did that little reunion, which was really, really lovely to be reunited with the cast of Fanny and Stella. And just a reminder, right after Fanny and Stella, Pippin is now playing at the Eagle and at the Garden Theater at the Eagle in Vauxhall, and they are closing this week. So if you are not self-isolating like I am currently doing my part to stop the spread of corona, please try and head to the Garden Theater at the Eagle at Vauxhall to catch the last remaining shows of Pippin. It is a 5-star, really, really critically acclaimed little show. I heard that it's just an amazing show. It's an amazing experience. So please go get it. Anyway, back to Pick Your Brains. I'm very, very excited for this episode because not only is it my first episode back here in London, and I'm going to try to be as regular as possible with this little stream. It's also really important for me because I get to talk to some fine, fine gentlemen who coincidentally all share the same first letter in their name. I did not plan that at all, and I've met them separately and then in different circumstances. But and I've seen one of them actually on stage. But the main common thread is that these gentlemen are also actors on stage. They're also theater actors, film actors, and screen actors, but they're also Filipino in heritage. And that's a massive thing because I remember back in the 90s watching a made-for-TV telemusical by Disney featuring the Rodgers and Hammerstein music of Cinderella. And Cinderella was played by Brandy, and the fairy godmother was Whitney Houston. It was pretty ahead of its time before BIPOC and representation and diversity were terms coined in the industry. There was a really, really diverse cast, and the Prince Charming was a Filipino, played by an actor named Paolo Montalban. And when I watched it, I realized, hey, I can grow up and be a Prince Charming because that guy looks like me. And it was a norm. It was absolutely normal for me to think that, especially growing up in the Philippines. But then I realized it was a different case when you're now a Filipino actor in a very predominantly white country like the United Kingdom. And it's really exciting when you see Filipinos on stage or on screen. And we are in early stages. And I think that these gentlemen are also going to be the early stages and early pioneers of what could be a very exciting generation of diverse actors on screen, particularly Filipino actors on screen and on stage. So I'm very, very, very excited to introduce to you some fine gentlemen. Starting off with, I've met this guy on more than one occasion. Met him when I was doing a Yellow Earth Academy sharing Zoom session, and he came out to watch Fanny and Stella and got to talk to him. Very talented young fella from Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. Please join me in welcoming Mr. James Bradwell. Hey, James.
Hey, good morning.
And you're greeting us from where exactly?
I'm in North London in my house, sort of near Finsbury Park.
Oh, and not too far from me. Not too far.
Not too far, yeah.
Not too far, yeah. Almost neighbors if it weren't for Corona.
Absolutely.
All right. Also, another story. Someone, my tita, everybody has a tita, a Filipino tita. My tita, who's not really a tita, but a family friend, reached out to me and said that her best friend or her amiga has a son who's in London who's also an actor. And she said, "Oh, my son's friend is also in London. He's an actor. You guys should talk because all Filipino actors in London should know each other, right? It's just second nature." So we did connect, and I decided to invite him to this little talk. Not too fresh from LAMDA, graduating from LAMDA 2 years ago, 2018. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Juan Wilken.
Hello.
Juan Paulo Wilken.
Hey.
You are saying hi from where exactly, Juan?
So I'm in Ealing, West London. It's sunny and slightly damp, but it's great. It's nice.
Sunny. It's very dreary right here where I am.
Yeah, I got a little sun right now, so it's kind of nice. But
the sun always follows the Filipinos, right?
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Next guy, I was very kapal mukha in just sending him a message. I've taught you guys that term. Very, very thick face, and just asking him, you know what? I'm doing a little podcast and stream. I've seen you on stage, and I've seen him on stage in what I consider to be one of my favorite 2019 shows that I've seen last year. Of course, unfortunately, we didn't get to see much shows this year, but then this particular play at the Dorfman at the National Theatre just blew me away. And it reminded me of everything that I love about theater and why I'm doing this. And I was so chuffed and so happy to see a Filipino was up on the boards in that show. Mr. Jeffrey Sangalang.
Hello.
Hey, Jeffrey.
How's it going? Hey.
Did I say your last name right?
You did, actually. You pronounced it the Filipino way.
How do the Brits say it?
Sangalang.
Sangalang.
It's quite. They've like in terms of going to castings. They just love like saying the name Sangalang.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's an interesting name. But yeah, you said it right, Sangalang.
Very good. I'm proud that I can say that right. All right, and last but not the least, from the Royal Shakespeare Company, you've seen him recently in music videos. He's doing a lot, but then I think what caused quite a stir, maybe not exactly viral yet, but it should go viral. It's this little monologue that he's done, and he posted it up on YouTube called Bananas. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous little piece, and it's a Filipino piece, which really got everybody excited. And I'm so glad, and I'm going ahead in what I plan to talk about today in our stream, but then I'm so glad that someone's actually being more kapal mukha and putting themselves out there and writing new stuff. And I think it's going to be exciting from here on in, especially this little connection that we're going to have. But please join me in welcoming Mr. James Cooney.
Hello.
Hey, James.
How we doing? You all right?
Hey.
All right. So we got Bradwell, Juan, and Jeffrey Sangalang in London, and myself are currently in London. And you are back home in Manchester.
Yeah, I am indeed in soon-to-be Tier 3 Manchester.
Oh my God.
That's how we do it in the north, man. That's how we do it in the north. Go hard.
I know.
All in.
Smashing it. Oh, God.
London is only in Tier 2. Well, it's almost in Tier 2, but then I think you guys.
The thing is, we should have been in Tier 3. We should have been in Tier 3 from the start of the week, and we were like, no, we're just going to push back. We're going to fight you on it. We know it's coming, but we're just going to still stick our ground.
I love. Did you guys see that article or that news clip on how the Liverpoolians the gyms in Liverpool are not closing down? They're like, no.
Yeah.
This is for
some of the guys that were in that gym. I thought, I'm not messing with you either. So
Exactly.
You say you're not shutting down. You're not shutting down.
I can just imagine the government going, we'd like to close the Liverpool gyms, and they're like, no, all right, it's just a guideline. That's fine. So, all right, okay. Thank you for joining us, and I'm so really, really, really happy that I get to see you guys and talk to you guys. And if it weren't for Corona, I don't think I would have been able to, muster up the courage to really approach you guys as quickly as I did for this. And, blessings and curses. But then this is all about me really discovering your stories and finding out from you guys what it's like to be growing up a Filipino here in the UK, and moreover, becoming a Filipino actor in the UK. So I guess like in my talking points, I just wanted to find out what was it like for you guys growing up different and brown and mixed, or people not really understanding what you guys are. And anybody can just jump in.
I'll go first.
James will go first.
It's interesting because like you said there, being different, being brown, all those kind of things. I think when I was a kid, and this is something that obviously I kind of spoke about in Bananas a little bit, but because Bananas is actually based on my brother in a way. He actually told me that story, or I knew that story happened to him, of him saying bananas. And then people being like, what did you say? What did you say? But when I was a kid, I don't think it wasn't upfront, and it wasn't like this kind of overt thing of me feeling or being different. And in a way, I guess that's what I'm trying to explore in that monologue and whatever it may come forward, because we understand the overt racism. We understand when people say the N-word or do yellow face or all those things. We understand that stuff. It's the kind of covert stuff that I always go, oh, that's weird, isn't it? And is that right? And is that... So, for example, his friends that were saying to him, bananas, and, oh, why are you saying bananas? Like, okay, that's othering and that's different, but they also didn't see it as like, they didn't see him negatively. They didn't say, oh, you say bananas and therefore, you're different and we shouldn't play with you, because we were kids, So I think that what's interesting for me as a mixed race person is I've for so long been kind of seen as, in a way, a lot of times, until I say I'm Filipino, or until someone sees my mum or hears my mum, they kind of don't really say anything. They don't quite know what to say. Right. And this kind of came to a head in when I was at the RSC in 2016, and the Guardian reviewed Hamlet that we were in, and I was playing, I can't remember whether it was Rosencrantz or Guildenstern. I think it was Rosencrantz. And the reviewer said, because it was a starring Papa Asiedu, so it was all kind of based on a black Hamlet. Not that he should be a black Hamlet, he's Hamlet, but it was all set in like an African nation. Right. So the cast were majoritively black and African, or African heritage. And so this reviewer kind of said, oh, the show, a predominantly black cast with a white Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And it was only really for me at that point that not obviously before then I'd thought about it and knew it, but then to have it so publicly kind of spoken about, for someone to say, oh, you're white, in a national newspaper. Yeah. I thought, like, that doesn't sit right with me. That really doesn't sit right with me, because I understand that I might look white and I might pass as white, which is so complicated. But if you call me white and you say I'm white, then you're essentially like deleting the whole half of my family history, which goes back centuries and generations and all that kind of thing. I'm pretty sure that my granddad, had he been alive, when I was doing the RSC, would have loved to have seen them say, a British Filipino Rosencrantz turns up on stage. Yeah. But he didn't say that, and he didn't know that, this reviewer. He just made an assumption. And it's those things that I'm kind of like, for me, that become so kind of interesting. It's the wrong word, but because, like I say, if we met in the street, a lot of people wouldn't think about it. I asked this to my girlfriend after we started getting together. I said, when we first met, what did you think I kind of like what my heritage was? And she was like, well, I thought that maybe you would have been like Italian or Greek or Spanish, but I knew you weren't like fully English sort of thing, So it's like, I understand that I don't look a certain way, but to then not have someone say, oh, you're Filipino, it just makes me feel like, oh, you're kind of negating my whole family history. Right.
It's so interesting. Let's looking at our faces right now. Like, to my eyes, we all look alike, but I can imagine to someone else from the UK, we look worlds different, worlds apart. Right. It's so interesting, because that's also what makes being Filipino so complicated out in the world, because we sometimes we look Asian, but we have a Spanish name. We're in a very wide gradient of brown and yellow to pale to dark. So it's so interesting, because that's also the nature of our race. We're just a hodgepodge of different cultures and different ethnicities. Was there any point for the other guys? Was there any point growing up or in drama school, like James, did you guys realize that, oh, all right, I'm different. Oh, I'm not like I'm not
yeah.
like my friends. Was there?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Juan.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I mean, it's so funny because, again, like growing up, like I kind of grew up, I grew up in Canada, basically. And in a place with a large Asian populace. But because of that, there was kind of this thing. I had a lot of white friends where I kind of wanted to the classic thing of, oh, I want to blend in. Like, I don't want to pay too much attention to myself. I want to bring normal food to school, all that stuff. And it was only really till I went to drama school where I really kind of dipped properly dipped my feet into my heritage and what made me kind of different. Because I realized partway through that I was like, huh, I haven't played a single Filipino part, or I've had to kind of do this weird justification in the backstory of my head to make myself Filipino in the story for some reason, for it to make sense to me, or something like that. And I think it came partway through second year when I realized, I was just chatting with my friends and we make some jokes and I'll be like, oh, I'll be your adopted brother or something like that. And then I go, this is a bit weird. This is what it's going to be like when I'm out. Am I going to have to justify kind of my place in the story and in parts where I, should be white, or, and, just thinking about, I guess, the kind of the amount of work outside of drama school where I've actually had to I still haven't played a single Filipino, obviously. I played Chinese, Japanese, but nothing Filipino so far. And it kind of made me go, wow, there is I am as othery can get. Right. In kind of the industry we're in, which is a shame, but I guess that kind of gives space for us to create more work and stuff like that. But I'm starting to I've started to ages ago, but I'm really starting to get into that stride of accepting my difference and kind of using that in a way to kind of express my truth or express the truths of others in really interesting, imaginative ways. So, it was a process, but I got there eventually, and I kind of want to do more stuff with it, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
James Bradwell.
Similar to what Juan said, I think it was in drama school that I realized the difference would be sort of codified in a way through how the industry sees you and that kind of thing. And it was actually to throw back, it was actually that very review that James mentioned and wrote about. You wrote a blog on the IRC that went onto the IRC website that I remember reading, and that was the first time I reached out to you before I was even at drama school, because it was the first time I think that something really struck a chord in me. I saw a Filipino, someone, and wearing that as a badge of pride and honor on a national stage. And it's funny how, because I grew up in Wiltshire, really I was the only non-white face really growing up, and it's funny how I was so much a minority that I didn't even think about my identity that much, because if there's only one, you sort of just don't. I think in my school statistics in Ofsted, we were 100% white school, because there wasn't enough minorities to make 1%, so we were averaged out. So
you literally weren't even counted.
Yeah. And
that's ridiculous.
The biggest irony was that our head teacher taught in London. I think he had quite a thing about making sure that we were sort of encouraging the very few minority students that were there. So to the point that we were 100% white school at the time that I was head boy in year 11 at that school, and not representing statistics, which was a really funny. That was weird, being so clearly I'm regarded a certain level, but I'm not seen on a basic statistic.
That's a monologue right there. I hope you're taking notes. That's a great piece right there.
Yeah, great line.
But then, as it was going to drama school, that I began to really understand that how I'm seen or how I grew up is not how I'm going to experience the industry.
Right.
And like, I mean, as Juan mentioned, just like Filipino roles, they're not going to be there. They're not there right now. And you know, I've been lucky. I've had a couple of TV jobs. Like my first job was as my character didn't even have a name. It was called Mandarin. He was just a Chinese person. I played someone with a Vietnamese name, but there was an occasion, you know, there we go. But there was an occasion we did a TV role, and he was just a pharmacist, and it was oddly freeing because I was able to kind of think, well, actually, by nature of me being in it as a British Filipino, that character is British Filipino.
Right.
Nothing about the character that forced otherwise. Just me being in that program meant the British Filipino was in that cast, was in that ensemble.
Right.
And that was almost quite nice, but I'm still without the experience of dissecting what it is to grow up.
Yeah.
British Filipino, not just mixed heritage,
Right.
not just like non-white, but like,
Or other Asian, as we're putting as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
you see it a lot in like observational comedy, and like when you can make this kind of group observations about, you know, what it is to have a tita that isn't your family.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's always someone cooking something, or
Right.
you know, like we know what it is to fill a big box of something to send to the Philippines.
Yeah.
And like, you know, those shared experiences can be written about. Like we see it with like Fresh Off the Boat, or watching Kim's Convenience, the great Korean American story that I've been watching recently. Like, yeah, like it'd be interesting to find more of that rather than just I'm passively representing British Philippines.
Yeah.
In my career.
Yeah.
Can I just say, there's got to be a better business model about sending a box to the Philippines.
I know.
My mum did it like last week, and she's like, "Oh no, the box is exploded, huh?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you expect? You just sent a box that like has no weight limit, Just put whatever you want in there, and just sent it to the Philippines, and just expected it to arrive all fine." I don't get it, man.
15 minutes in, and James Cooney brings out his mum already. Like I was waiting. I thought it was going to happen later on in the Sorry, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I was just going to say, does your mum do the thing where you just sellotape it over and over and over?
Yeah.
Like they act as if that's like metal or something. Like that's
that
not
noise,
gonna do anything.
like that noise is just like it's just so jarring.
What was it like?
Yeah, no, of James's point, I feel like I'm always kind of like looking or searching for like identity, I guess, especially like growing up in London and being Filipino. There's a part of me, like growing up, it was fine for me, to be honest. In my school, I felt like I knew I was Filipino, and in my school I had like Filipino friends, but I also kind of like I wouldn't say dive in, but I had friends from like all like white people, black people, all other cultures. And I mean, like, so I didn't really, I felt like I fitted in, but the more I would say being an actor, I reckon the more I got into the industry, it really kind of like shone a spotlight of kind of going, okay, I'm not black, I'm not white, I'm Filipino. Do you know what I mean? I'm Filipino. And going off Juan's point, you do sometimes feel like a minority in a minority. Do you know what I mean? Like where it's kind of, especially going up for roles. Like personally for myself, I've never been seen for like a Chinese role or a Vietnamese role. So it's either I'm either being seen for a Filipino role, which is I haven't been seen for one, or I'm being seen for for something that's just like a person, like a human, which is like amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like when we get those, we're like, yes, like I don't have to be anything, I can just like be myself. But I would say that's probably where I kind of I noticed it. And especially being in rooms, there is a part of me where I go into a room, I'm sure you've all had it, and you're like, I'm the only Filipino here, and there is a sense of pride there, kind of going, cool, like I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna like, do you know what I mean? I'm gonna show everyone like why I'm here. But also there is a sadness of kind of going like, I wish like there were more. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of if you're an actor, like I'm talking more even like people on stage or like who work on lighting or do you know what I mean? Behind camera or stuff.
Definitely.
I feel like we're all connected. So yeah, I'm still kind of like I feel like all of us are still trying to find our ways, but it does seem like things, I mean, for example, this podcast now and seeing all your faces is, for me, like quite a proud moment, because it's kind of like, shit, like, I don't think this has ever happened, or maybe I'm just oblivious to it. But like, it just, signs like that kind of seem like things seem to be steering, but like we don't know, I guess.
Do you feel are you like me, where you go to a spotlight announcement and you look straight at the appearances and it says any, and I'm like, yes. Appearances,
Well,
any.
it depends.
Which is like, oh, okay, so that means they're not looking only for either a white or a, anyway. Do you guys feel that being an actor actually helped you on this journey to discovering your identity?
Yeah,
I think so, 100%. I honestly don't think I would have been as close to it if it wasn't for, because obviously it's a very like kind of internally searching / externally searching kind of job to have. So that kind of lends I clearly went to drama school. Lends itself to just kind of accidental self-discovery.
Right.
And it's honestly made me really happy. It's made me closer to my mom, that's for sure. Made me happier about the food and like, kind of just the weird eccentricities of our culture. Because you can use that stuff for any role, really. But yeah, I don't think I would have been as close to my identity if it wasn't for acting, personally. Yeah.
I think like, any sense of any creative pursuit, surely on some level is tied into identity. And just because, for me anyway, a lot of it is about the human experience, right? And certainly, working in the RSC for the past 4 years, like on and off, there's something about being connected to a guy who was writing 400 years ago, who's saying stuff that you go, that still applies to me today. It applied to you as like this white guy from Stratford upon Avon, and it applies to me as a mixed race British Filipino connected to my mum. My mum came to see King Lear when I was doing King Lear. And one of the last lines, and I remember it's so weird because she's never really been to see Shakespeare. She only really been to see because I've been in it. And she, I'm not going to do the accent this time. And but that one of the last lines in King Lear is, I'm going to butcher it, but essentially Edgar saying, "Speak what we feel, not what we ought to say." And she kind of turned to me and was like, that line towards the end of the play, what's that line? And I sort of said the line to her, and she was like, that's really good, isn't it? And that was her way, I think, of her going, oh, like I connect to that, I get that. And that's something that, like I say, is ye old English, right? And is this very, very still, white middle class British pastime for us. But to her was something that she could connect with and find a sense of identity and find a way of making her way through the world. So I agree, like all the acting that we've been doing or any creative pursuit over the past however many years, I think is in some way us trying to go, okay, what is this identity for me and how do I move through the world,
Anyone else?
I agree. I mean, also
I love that. I love that. Love that so much.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
What we do is obviously a part of ourselves anyway, so it's kind of, that's a given. But in terms of like, I would say I agree with family. It's I don't know about like your parents, but like I love how my parents don't really know what I do. Do you know what I mean? It's like they don't get it, which is great because it's kind of like you separate a home from I say work, even though I love it, but you know what I mean? So you can come home and it's just kind of like, it's like Filipino household, you know what I mean? But having said that, in terms of a connection that just came up to my head now, I recently did a short film just before lockdown, and I was quite grateful to do it because they weren't looking, the character, it was going to be based on who was cast in it, and because I was Filipino, there's some bits where I had to speak Tagalog, and my Tagalog is, I mean, I can understand it pretty well, but in terms of pronouncing stuff and putting sentences together, it's not very good.
You know, there's a test at the end of the show, right?
Yeah, you've warned us about this test.
I'm not good at Tagalog at all.
I'm sure it. But I got the lines that I had to like translate, and I got my mum and dad, and I was like, right, we sat down, and I was like, help me translate all this, so then I can just like learn it. Do you know what I mean? And that was because I said like they come to see my shows, and to be honest, that's probably the only connection I've had, just to kind of them being like present whilst you're doing your thing. Like that's a big thing, but to kind of go a step further and really like go into the language, or really they're helping me like create a character. It's like, do you know what I mean? That's something acting can do, and I don't think anything else can. So that's just an example of like how my identity kind of wrapped up in with my parents and acting. So yeah,
you guys were actually going into my next question, but you can definitely talk about identity. But then I was gonna ask about how it is explaining to your parents or your Filipino parent about what it is you do. Like, what is that acting? What are you doing on stage? You know, and it must be such a fulfillment when they actually see you on stage do your thing and do exactly what you love doing.
I think there's it's an interesting one, I think, from a Filipino perspective, and I think I reflect this off the experience of other Southeast Asians that you meet.
Yeah,
where I think there is that slightly more. There is a stronger tradition of performance in the Philippines, for sure, compared to other Asian nations. I mean, look at Miss Saigon with Lisa Longa, or look at what musical theatre certainly represents for a lot of Filipinos. And you know, we all know if you have a magic sing in the house, everyone's a singer. Like, I think what I found quite interesting was when I looking at like the serious acting, that we call it, and how that is a different species, and how like I thought, it's maybe an uncouth way of saying it, but like, am I exploring this through my British heritage, or how's my Filipino-ness coming into this? And like, I think of what I inherited from my parents, and like I have a love of language definitely from my dad, but I think my performance comes from my mum, who's like a beautiful singer and a wonderful dancer, and she used to dance well before she had us. I'm one of four, but it's fascinating trying to like pick that apart. I guess it's what we all do. You try and like reflect on your identity, but yeah, like trying to explain acting. I think it's what you're saying, Jeffrey, about it's quite nice having that separation, but you don't have any pretension walking into that house, because you can come in with that. Yeah, I've just done this job or that job, or I just met this casting director. They're like, who? And that's nice.
No idea.
Yeah, of course. Who? Why not? Just like let's put that aside.
And it's so interesting because the most common understanding of theater, even in the Filipino consciousness, is musical theater, and it's great. There's a place and a space for that, which is where I'm building my career. But then there's also this gorgeous undiscovered world, at least from the Filipino lens, of what straight drama is. And that's Shakespeare. That's all of the stuff that you guys do. And I'm sure it's quite a difficult thing to explain to your mom and your dad what you guys are doing if it's not either Miss Saigon or a musical theater piece, right?
But again, I think that a lot of that problem for me is, why would they come and see us? Like, why for example, my dad is a like working class guy that is like lived in Manchester all his life. He knows that theater like exists, but he doesn't go and partake in it. Why? He doesn't feel a need to go and do that, And I think it's the same with a Filipino community. Like, you have to engage all people if we want them to come and say, we think you should come because look at this, like you could, you will enjoy this, you know.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I am extolling the virtues of Shakespeare now, but when I was a 15, 16-year-old kid, I hated Shakespeare. I hated Shakespeare. Like, it was the last thing I wanted to do.
Right.
And it was only when I went to it's only really when I went to drama school and we started to study it that I went, oh man, like this is brilliant. I love this and I want to be a part of this. So I don't know what it is. Like, I agree with you. I think that somehow musicals, and I think that's you know, across all kinds of sections of the public, which is they feel that they can go to a musical. They're allowed to go to a musical. At the RSC, it feels a bit like, oh, only certain people go to the RSC, or theatre, National Theatre, you know, only certain people go to the National Theatre. And that's the thing that has to be worked upon. And that has to come from us, right? That has to come from within the industry to go, look, we want you to come, but if we want you to come, we need to offer you something that you're going to want, you know?
Yeah.
We can't just say, you should want this, right? You should want it. You know, they have to be like, oh, there is a demand for it. And of course, there is always space for stuff which is, and we always want to, I think, push people's boundaries of what they enjoy and what they like. But also, I think we should be engaging that community and going, what do you want to see? Like I say, one of the great things, and I'm not going to try and, you know, I'm not a writer, I'm not published or anything like that. But one of the beauties of not yet. But one of the beauties of like doing that monologue is that it felt like there was people coming back to me going, oh, like I didn't know, even because not even just Filipinos. The fact that I said in that monologue, oh, Riles, or Riles, do you want a beaner? Like, even my girlfriend was like, what's a beaner? And I was like, it's a rye beaner, innit? You know what I mean? Like, but we don't hear that on stage. We don't hear like people. We don't hear people talking the way they talk in real life sometimes. And we should be reflecting people's lives as much as anything else. And that's why I think working class communities, Filipino communities, people of other ethnic backgrounds, I hate that word, but you know, we should be reflecting their experience, because only then will they go, oh, I want to engage with that, you know?
Because that's also what we see in real life right now. Like, you walk down London, like I remember 2 years ago when we first came into the UK, I didn't realize how diverse London was. Like, it was, and you walk down, and literally not too long after you exit the tube, you're hearing someone speaking in Tagalog behind you. I'm like, what? Where am I? You know, so you're like, I'm back in Manila, you know? So, I mean, it's just a melting pot. And that's what real life is right now. Do you feel that the landscape in the theater, at least, or even, maybe not in screen or on film yet, but at least in theater, has changed drastically in the past, like maybe 10 years, or since you guys started acting on stage, in terms of being more accepting to diversity and different accents and sounds and people of color?
I honestly, I think there's a much greater push from within the industry now than maybe when, you know, I graduated 2011, right? And I feel coming out of drama school in 2011, I still think a lot of, you know, all my teachers were saying to me, you know, really be hot on your RP, right? Got to be on top of your RP. Absolutely. I agree that you should be able to do a good RP if you want to be an actor in the UK. Fair enough, right? But also, why was no one saying to me, but also, like, don't lose the fact that you're from Manchester, and don't lose the fact that you're a Filipino. There wasn't really that talk of almost like pushing your own sense of identity. I don't think. Maybe it was there, but I was younger and now I'm just more aware of it. I think there's much more awareness of that now. So, for example, I think I mentioned to you about, this was to Richard, but places like Open Door, who are trying to get in people into drama school who are from lower economic backgrounds or people from different ethnicities and all that kind of thing, and making a real push for that, like an active push towards that. Where I think there's still a whole lot of change to be done is from an audience perspective, right? And that's hard because, again, I'm going, well, we want to give you something that you want to see, right? But at the same time, if we only give you, you know, a certain section of what you want to see, and we don't push those expectations, nothing will ever change. So, for example, doing Taming of the Shrew at the RSC, which was a gender reversed production, there was still, there was one night where a guy, and look, there's always going to be. I was listening to the radio yesterday, and they said, out of 100 people, there's always going to be one prat, isn't there? Yeah, and there was a prat who like stood up at the interval and was like, "This is a disgrace. How dare they like change Shakespeare this way? This would never happen. It's the PC brigade gone mad." All that kind of thing. Kind of like stormed out the theater, and I just thought, you're that incensed by a play. It's a play, man.
Yeah. Yeah, just chill out.
Just come on. And look, if you don't like it, fine. Don't pay to come and see it. I'm not forcing you. I'm not forcing you to come and see the play. You chose to come. And look, there was a poster. There was a big old poster with loads of women on the front. What did you expect? So I just think that there's still that battle and there's still that fight. Yeah. I think it will change, and there's going to be much bigger conversations to be had around it. And I'm not going to stand here and say that like the RSC have got it right, or the National have got it right, or any theatre company got it dead on. There's going to be stuff that we're going to make mistakes, but I think that there's a more awareness of it within the industry now. So, for example, even at the RSC, I can't remember when it was, maybe 2011, 2012, but when they did the Orphan of Zhao, right?
Oh yeah,
which was essentially a Chinese play, and they only had like 2 East Asian, I think, performers in it, and they were playing the like servant roles, and there were essentially white actors playing Chinese parts. That was only, like I said, I couldn't give you the exact date, but it wasn't that long ago. Whereas I feel like now, if anyone like tried to do that, and people have tried to do that in the past few years, like people will be on it straight away and be like, "Whoa, hang on, have you thought about this? And have you listened to the people that you are currently now, representing?" And I think that's where I think I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that within it, we're talking about that a lot more.
Yeah.
There's a sense for change, I think, far more than there was. And like the very fact that those kind of conversations will be more mainstream, and you'll find them in publications that aren't just sort of independently run or whatever. You're seeing them. I mean, look at Gal Gadot being cast as Cleopatra in this film, and immediately it's arisen about, is that all right? Is that something that we the probing has started already on things like that?
Yeah.
In a way that would have just been brushed aside and brushed under the carpet.
I think what's exciting is, I mean, in any generation, in any situation, you'll have the artists who will be the loudest to protest when they feel that something is unjust or not right in its portrayal or whatever. You'll have the artists that are going to be loudest in their resistance, which I love. That's what I love about the UK. People are asking me, what's the Corona situation about when it comes to performing arts in the UK? I'm like, it's still quite bleak, but people are resisting. People are trying to move toward a solution. And apart from being critical about certain decisions that are being made, it's nice that there's also new material being written for actors of our heritage, or at least on the other side of the world, opposite the Western Hemisphere. I mean, you have the big Netflix animation coming out, Over the Moon, which is very exciting. I mean, you have a hero. It's going to be a girl, and it's going to be a Southeast Asian girl, and it's about the Southeast Asian story. It's amazing. Like, finally, we're approaching some sort of normalcy when it comes to our stories being told.
Right. Asian. It's only recently that in our discourse around race, especially up until now, we've been saying East Asian a lot, which is in Parliament just the other day on this topic, and Sarah P was very clear on using the term not just British, Chinese, but East Asian and Southeast Asian, and how you just a minority within a minority. That's I think like we get lumped into this sort of large tranche of the world. Is, like, you can't unify all of those experiences because they are so distinct and so unique. And within Southeast Asia, it's so distinct and so unique.
For me, it's a similar thing with when we talk about mixed race, right? Because I would say I'm mixed race, but certainly within casting, if ever a casting director puts out a thing like looking for mixed race actors, I will like apply, and sometimes you can feel like the casting director's going, "Are you mixed race?" Because they don't, I think for me, whenever they hear like mixed race, I think a lot of the time, I think more often than not, I feel like there's an expectation that mixed race means like, you know, a white and black person. You know,
absolutely.
And it comes, you know, who would be like a good example of that? I don't know a good example, but you know, that mixed race is a much bigger, wider lens than I think we have realized. You know, people. You know, I'm a big football fan, right? So people forget that Ryan Giggs is mixed race, right? Like you see a white Welsh guy, but he's definitely a mixed race guy, and I just think that conversation is one that is again really interesting to me, and in this very what's the word, like cosmopolitan Britain that we now live in, where we have, like you said before, like there's a whole melting pot of people,
right,
in all cities, not just like London,
exactly,
but Manchester and all in Birmingham, you know, all those places that you go, it's not as simple, you know, as because I think for me, again, you know, my white British friends from Manchester, like their parents, like they born in Manchester, grew up in Manchester, met their partner from Manchester, and they all kind of like, and it just doesn't happen like that for us now. You know, my brother lives out in Australia. My other brother is thinking about moving to the Philippines right now. Like that's the kind of world that we live in.
Yeah.
Was there any situation where you boys, where your Filipino-ness actually helped you in your performance or an audition? And I think, I mean, we're talking a lot about the current climate on the industry, but it's nice to hear more about your actual work. And I think people would love to hear about your work. I mean, you got James from Bristol, Vic, Juan from LAMDA, RSC, obviously from James Cooney, and National Youth Theatre Company, and the National Theatre, Jeffrey. So, I mean, are there any stories of you using your Filipino-ness to actually benefit your performance?
I mean, you know, doing Bianco, I'm not gonna lie, doing Bianco, right, at the Taming of the Shrew, which is very, you know, flamboyant kind of character. I was like, look, I know this guy in the Philippines. This is my mum's best friend, you know. And it was just, yeah. So there's that. I mean, again, I think as artists, we draw on those influences that we've had through our lives, right?
Because honestly, I'll tell you what, I'm just waiting for the day that I get to use the Filipino accent out here in the UK. I'm waiting for the day where I actually get to use it, because I just, it's such an interesting sound, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. How about you guys?
I did a show with a theatre company called Pappy Show, which they're an amazing theatre company that do a lot of like physical theatre, but also look at like identity. And it was a show called Boys. So we weren't really playing characters. So I got to just literally be myself, if that, like, so I would, and we did go down the whole route of like heritage. And for me, because I was being myself, it was kind of like, it was just quite easy, because I could talk about just being Filipino on stage, and that was new to me, because it was just like, wow, like I'm getting to own my space and talking to an audience about being Filipino, essentially what we're doing here. Do you know what I mean? And but to have it in a theatre space was quite new, but like real kind of like, I don't know, like eye-opening experience.
Almost like a homecoming, I think.
Pretty much,
it's like you coming home into that identity, into that space as well.
And I was like the only Filipino in the cast as well.
Wow.
So it was just kind of like, it was a real kind of proud moment. And also, I would say, I mean, when I was doing the show at the National, I did a lot. Maybe this is just me being a copping out, but I feel like the way I move is very rooted into like Filipino. I don't know, like I don't.
No, so slow, right? Yeah. No. Ages, yeah.
I actually meant to ask you, Jeffrey, because my wife and I saw that show, and was it intentionally written in your character that you were a Southeast Asian or Filipino?
No.
But then they put it in, wasn't it? Like it's now part of the breakdown, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? I didn't even.
No, because I think that's what excited me the most. Like the character. I mean, if you see the show, it could have been anyone, but then because Jeffrey was the one particularly cast into it, I think now they've kind of incorporated, which is fantastic. I think.
I mean, it's like it's stuff like that which you're really kind of, you really are proud because you feel like it goes beyond you. You're representing like us rather than just myself. Right. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So, and to do that on a stage like the Dorfman is like incredible. But no, I didn't even know if they. I mean, it's great. They say that he's Filipino now, but like I said, I did a lot of movement in that show, and I feel like I said, I don't know. I know my dad used to dance a bit, and my mum didn't really. But there's just a sense of I always kind of question because I do acting, I do a lot of movement. I do kind of. I'm just like I don't know why I can move this way, and a part of me kind of feels like it's beyond me, and probably down from heritage and like the climate in the Philippines, and like the way people are in terms of how they like are relaxed, but also quite like I don't know, intentional as well. But chilled. It's crazy.
My favorite Filipino like man thing, especially. You know when they like lift up the shirt and just like hold it here?
Yeah.
Or they just like have the shirt like tied up here, and just like with the big belly out, right?
Yeah.
Usually like, hand on the belly, flip flops on.
It's usually after a big meal.
Yeah.
It's usually after a big meal. They have it up to the belly, up until the chest. Have any of you been to the Philippines?
Oh yeah.
Once when I was 4, literally not.
Bradwell, man, you gotta go back, man.
Yeah,
we have to go back.
When was the last time you've been there, James? Cooney.
To be fair, it's been a few years for me now. It's what 2015.
That's not too long ago.
2014.
Just 5 years ago.
Yeah, maybe 5, 6 years ago, something like that. But I was gonna go this year. So our tour, we were in the middle of a tour. We were in Newcastle when everything got shut down, and we were gonna go to America for like 6 weeks, then go to Japan, South Korea, then to Japan, and then I was like, look, I'm basically there, so I might as well spend a few more weeks out there. And and then Miss Rona came along, didn't she?
Miss Rona all our plans.
Yeah.
How about you, Juan? When was the last time you were back home?
So it was 2 years ago. It was for my mom's 50th birthday because we wanted to see all the titas who don't scare me at all. No, I love these pieces.
The blood titas and the non-blood titas.
And the non-blood titas, yeah, exactly. The kind of group, the matriarchs. And we went to Boracay actually, I think. Yeah, which was great. That was my first time there. I think it was partway. It wasn't even 2 years ago. It was actually a second year in drama school actually. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I miss it so much. I miss the food, the climate, the people. Got to meet some random drunk Titos that I've never met before in my life. Say some questionable things, and I go, yeah, of course.
I love it.
Yeah, it's certainly always fun whenever I go back. I do miss that. But yeah,
Jeffrey.
2013. So it's been a while actually, or 2014. But it's always going back to like growing up in London. I was quite fortunate that I remember I have a memory of like the first time I've gone, but like we've kind of gone every 4 years since me being a kid. That's obviously kind of changed now a bit, but like it's quite crazy because every time you go, you kind of see it with like older eyes. So it was a real kind of like, I don't know, like a timeline of like 4 years and seeing like the titas and the titos change, or how like your cousins grow, and that relationship between your cousins, how it differed from being a kid to like, but within like the 4 year span. So I do miss it like a lot because that 4 years has obviously like disappeared, and it's gone to like, I can't do maths, like seven-ish years. I do miss it just to kind of, I don't know, because I feel like we're forever growing, and I feel like I need to see it with like the eyes I have now. Do you know what I mean? Or feel it like the experiences that I've got like now. and that will forever be a thing. But like, yeah, I miss it. And having said that, I just kind of miss being like on the beach as well, and just like singing karaoke and drinking San Miguel's.
Yeah, the San Miguel in the UK is very different from the San Miguel in the Philippines.
It's so different.
Oh god,
Very, very different.
lovely.
Very
cigar
cold.
there.
San Miguel Pale Pilsen is probably
That's
my favorite one. All right. I just got a message to give a really. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier, but the shout out to James Cooney's Filipino flag behind him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it was.
Man,
Representing. Oh, let's talk about like moving forward. I was chatting with a really, really exciting young guy named Richard Peralta. I'm going to put up his details up. He's working currently on a book of monologues and text specifically for Filipino stories, and he reached out to me and he was saying that when he found out I was doing the stream, he was very excited that I was going to be able to talk to more Filipino British actors or Filipino Canadian, basically Filipino heritage actors out in the UK, because more stories need to be told. So if any one of you is listening, a creative or an actor, a Filipino actor, reach out to him, Richard P. Peralta, at Twitter and IG, and richardp.peralta@gmail.com, because he's currently compiling more Filipino monologues and he aims to publish that very soon. Is that the solution, you guys reckon? More for us to be writing our own stories and telling our own stories?
I think it's got to a point where, you know, I think I said this to James Bradwell recently. Like, I'd also had this other project that I've been kind of working on, and it just got to that point where I was like, oh, I really want this to be a play, and then thought, well, who's going to do it? Because you know, there's no kind of like, or at least I don't know any like Filipino playwright in England who is like prolific, as it were, or, you know, in the same way, you know, we don't have like a Filipino Simon Stevens. Mate, that is me, innit? That's what I want to be, the Filipino Simon Stevens.
You should do it.
I mean,
Black
why do you have to wait for anyone to be that messiah rather than, I mean, Lin-Manuel didn't wait for anyone else.
Exactly. Honestly, like that was another thing that I went to go see Hamilton for my birthday last year, almost exactly a year ago, and you know, that last bit about who lives, who dies, who tells your story, I was like, that was like one of the most moving things I've ever seen. And it'd already been brewing up to that point anyway, this idea of, you know, I want to see more Filipino stories, and I thought about other stuff in years gone by that I didn't do, and I've probably missed the boat on some of those ideas now because they're kind of, I don't know, they don't really speak to me anymore. But yeah, that's it got to that point where you just go, well, someone's gonna have to do it. And I think it's, you know, I've been reading a lot recently, especially around these ideas of race, and I think that there is always this, I think there's this idea which is difficult certainly for me, which is that you think, if I'm going to write a British Filipino story, it has to be the British Filipino story, right? It has to be excellent, because that's the only way anyone's going to watch it or be interested in it. And I just, again, got to this point, probably in lockdown, where I thought, well, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have
to be number one on the freaking, you know, charts or whatever. It just has to be your story. It just has to exist.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've just kind of got to that point now where I just think, well, you know, stop waiting for someone else to do it and just start to do it yourself. And thankfully, you know, there's a lot of people seem to have said, yeah, like, do it, and what you've written is like the start of an idea that you can grow. So yeah, just got to do that.
It's the little banana seed that's gonna make it grow.
Perfect.
Do you guys feel that there's more awareness now about Filipinos in general, about our culture, about our heritage here in the UK? Food, I mean, just being knowing Filipinos, like, I find that I have to explain less what a Filipino is nowadays.
When I remember being at a drama school, and one of the guys in my class, you know, American, very probably more Filipinos, I would say. Yeah, more Filipinos in America than certainly in the UK. And I was like, he said, he goes, oh, so James, like, you know, where are your family from again? I was like, oh, from the Philippines. He said, that's near Spain, right? I was just like, whoa, okay. No, it's not. It's not near Spain.
No.
I mean, it's got links to Spain. It's not near Spain.
Yeah.
It's just got a 300-year link to Spain, but
yeah, you know.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk about all that stuff later. But, yeah, so I agree. You know, it's one of the, I guess, sad things that's come out of, you know, the pandemic is that all of a sudden, yes, there is more awareness of Filipinos, but one of the reasons that they're more aware is that they go, oh, there are the third highest amount of people within the NHS are Filipinos. Like they have helped to prop up your NHS. My mum's a midwife. You know, that's how she has made her living in England for so long.
I was talking to James about this very specifically, and I still want to eventually write that story up about nurses and about the Filipinos working in the NHS. I think there are compelling stories there, and just that landscape of how many of just the whole. I sent a documentary to James about it.
Yeah.
About how the migration of nurses from the Philippines to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And we're probably one of the most known countries to export care.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
So my mum went and lived out in the Emirates and like worked out in the Emirates for a few years when I was at drama school. So I went out there and visited her, and literally everyone I met behind like the counter, like service and all those things, I was like, oh, they're Filipino. And when my mum would be in the hospital, she'd be like, I mean, it's basically like being in the Philippines because all the nurses are Filipino. And you're just like, it's mad. It's amazing. I think it's a real, there's definitely that part of me that sometimes goes, oh, I think I'm supposed to be a nurse or a doctor or something. You know, there's that expectation. Yeah. You know,
100%.
Yeah.
So you're going to say something, James Bradwell?
No, I was probably not to add too much, but yeah, just that sort of the prevailing culture of what it is to be seen as Filipino in this country, and like how, you know, for example, my sister's a nurse and my mum's a housekeeper. You know, that's literally my family truth. And but you I mean, I've been doing much more reading up now than I ever have done on what it is to be Filipino, what the Philippine history, and I found out things about American colonization I had no idea about, and just like, how come I had no idea? And like, James, it was you told me about the book, this book, Noli Me Tangere, which is like I had never heard of growing up. Which
hang on, how much do you know about it, JP?
Hang on. What? James Cooney, you sent to James Bradwell? Noli Me Tangere?
You told me
because so like February, what was it? February. It was like January 2018. For whatever reason, I can't remember why, I decided to kind of Google it or whatever.
Mate.
And then sort of found that novel and like read it on holiday in Spain, like very boring next to my mate who wanted to go out and drink all the time. I was like by the pool reading this Filipino novel and was like, man, what? Like, why have I never heard of this? Why have I never read this?
I'm a massive Jose Rizal nut.
Well, that's it. You know, my granddad, like I say, you know, unfortunately passed 2013, something like that. But he, you know, he would talk about Jose Rizal and he'd say that Jose Rizal is my hero. That would be his thing. Like Jose Rizal is my hero. And you see pictures of Jose Rizal everywhere in the Philippines. And I suddenly thought, I don't even know this guy. Like, I know he's a hero, but I don't know why he's a hero. And then read that book. And genuinely, I don't know if you guys have, who's read that book and who's not, but if you think about that novel, which he was then essentially executed for kind of 4-6 years later or whatever, if you think about that, if that happened today and there was a guy who wrote a novel, like imagine George Orwell being executed for 1984. Like it is that level. Like this novel was seen as, you know, what's the word? Like he was seen as a dissident, right? Yeah. And he was a revolutionary through a novel.
They called him a filibuster.
Yeah.
That's the second. That's the second novel. If you go on to read the second one called The Filibuster.
I just thought, man, this is a guy that, like, was trying to change his country, change the world through a piece of art, like, and was killed for it at like 30, or wherever he was, like 32, something like that. So.
And you know what's beautiful about Jose Rizal? I mean, just as a mirror to what we're doing right now, I'm being actors, like particularly in my case, because I was born and raised in the Philippines, but now I'm building a life in the UK. A lot of his writings and a lot of his knowledge came from when he was studying and spent his life in Europe. And what I love about it is that it did not make him any less Filipino by being away from the actual motherland. In fact, it made him more of a patriot, it made him more Filipino when he realized how much he loved his country from afar and then eventually died for it. I mean, there's so much beauty to that. Yeah. And if you look at just that nice little image of Jose Rizal making his career and his legacy outside of the Philippines and eventually dying for the country, that's essentially what the millions of nurses throughout history have done. They moved out of the country to serve their life and be more Filipino than they are when they were living in the country. And that's what OFWs are, overseas Filipino workers are. And that's what a lot of us migrant actors are doing. And that's what we are doing, essentially. We're finding our identity away from the motherland, but being more Filipino and being more in touch with our identity in that process. So interesting. Oh, I love it. Anyway, so I'm getting quite emotional, James Cooney. You got me all goosebumpy. But yeah, so what do you guys feel is essentially the next steps in terms of like where it's going as Filipino actors, apart from obviously writing new stuff and representing? I mean, there's this whole talk about with the rise of Black Lives Matters, all of a sudden there's more discussion on diversity and representation. Is that still a thing? Is it still a thing that we need to discuss? Representation, is there a lack of it? Or is it already headed toward a place where we feel it's acceptable?
I personally feel like we always need to talk about it all the time. Even if it, even if it gets frustrating, I think it's important to keep that discourse up and to actually put things into action as well. Because I mean, like this is what I think about. Like, what essentially all this representation and that diversity stuff is trying to do is to kind of literally change old rules and old paradigms that have been there for literally centuries, and that's going to take consistent discussion, consistent action. Talks like these, help as well, and just anything really, just to keep it up, because as soon as it goes out of the public eye, I feel like it'll just kind of shift back to what it was before. So I think it's just I think right now we're in the process of massive growing pains, because I mean, for example, that guy who stood up and said, "Oh, this isn't Shakespeare," blah blah blah. We're going to get a lot of growing pains from those kinds of people, and ourselves as well, unfortunately, is what I think. So yeah, just consistent action, keeping things up.
I was telling James Bradwell about one of my biggest dreams is to have like a fully Filipino cast of Julius Caesar. I think that would be so interesting to watch and like contextualize it in a fully Filipino cast of Julius Caesar, and how our relationship, how the Philippines and the relationship with politics is so.
Yeah, completely. Like in terms of that context, it fits so perfectly. Hell, even King Lear. I mean, most of the political plays would work really well in the Philippines. I mean, some of the stuff I've heard about the corruption and I had a relative who was a distant relative who was, I think the mayor of a provincial town or something like that. I can't remember who told me the story. It was someone in the Philippines, and some of the political killings are sound really graphic and terrifying.
Have you guys seen The Kingmaker? The HBO documentary.
Marcos.
There's an HBO, on Imelda Marcos, and it only came out last December, I think, but I think it was on. It's been on Sky since. I managed to watch it just recently. But yeah, some of the some of the footage in particular that they have in that is amazing, and some of the stories kind of come out. And like you're saying, Shakespearean stories. I go, some of the stuff my mum watches, like the soaps and the dramas in Tagalog and stuff. I mean, that drama, that's real drama right there.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they'll understand the sort of heightened drama that comes in Shakespeare, and they'll appreciate it,
Have you guys seen like Filipino movies or Filipino teleseries?
I have some vague memories of them when I was a kid. I'll my Lola would be watching something and I just kind of join in and stuff. With a lot of the classic, Christian imagery and all that stuff. I remember vague things. But I haven't seen a Filipino film in ages though.
The only so it'll be when my mum's in the Philippines in particular. In the evening she'll just watch the TV for a bit. And there's one that I remember where you might know this better than me, JP. I don't know what it is, but there's a girl who has like donkey ears.
It's not Midsummer Night's Dream, is it?
No, that's what I'm saying. For real. I was like, I just turned around and she kind of took her hat off and she had donkey ears. Like it was this, and that was like the premise of the story.
That's brilliant.
And I was like, look, Mum, if you enjoy it, you're smiling, that's all that matters,
So love Midsummer Night's Dream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They love that stuff.
Yeah. They freaking love it.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, James.
Brillante Mendoza films. You should watch.
Have you seen that?
I saw Kinatai maybe about 2012 or something like that.
Write that down.
Yeah. I mean, it is a hard watch. It's a hard watch. Have you seen it?
I was 9 years a filmmaker before I moved to the UK. So yeah, Kinatai is what he won the Palme d'Or for, right? Did he win the Palme d'Or? Yes, I think it might have been
something like that, right?
Cerbis. Might have been Cerbis, his first one.
Okay.
About the theaters, the old dilapidated movie theaters that were used now as brothels. It might have been that, I think. But anyway, so films, and the aesthetic of Filipino films is something I know quite well because 9 years as a filmmaker back home before moving and going back to be an actor out here is quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's so exciting and it's just so nice to hear from you guys and your perspectives on representation and where the industry is headed. You want to play a little game?
Sure. So for it.
We're playing a little game. So the title of this little podcast is called The Bard, the Boys, and the Bahay Kubo. So every Filipino household growing up will know of a little song or poem called Bahay Kubo.
Okay.
You guys have no idea, have you?
No, I do, but I don't.
Okay.
I can't sing the whole fucking song.
Let's see it.
I want to see if I recognize it. Oh no!
I just know the first line.
Oh, let's do it.
And then I'll hum the rest. That's what
Jeffrey, so it's basically, you guys know what Bahay Kubo is?
I don't know.
Bahay Kubo means like a little hut.
Yeah.
Like a nipper hut, right?
Like a nipper hut, exactly. So it's called. Go ahead, Jeffrey. Start us off.
I'm just gonna hum the rest, but it kind of goes.
No, it goes.
Oh,
go ahead. We'll start to build it. Go ahead.
Bahay Kubo.
I am
definitely
hurt.
Well, you got the first two lines right. So it's Bahay Kubo kahit munti. You guys know what that means?
Something about. Say it again. Bahay Kubo.
So, Bahay Kubo kahit munti. So Bahay Kubo kahit munti. Hazard a guess what it means?
Kahit is love,
Even.
No. What's
Mahal.
So the only other like line I know from a Tagalog song is kahit kailan. What's that from?
Kahit kailan. I know the songwriters of that. I know the band that originated that song.
There you go, man.
Kahit kailan, yeah. So kahit means even. So Bahay Kubo kahit munti. So nipa hut or small house, even if it's small. right?
Right.
Bahay kubo kahit munti ang halaman doon. Does that make sense?
The
Ang halaman
flowers.
doon
Completely off.
ay sari-sari. Ang halaman doon ay sari-sari.
Sadie,
Sorry, it's a store, right?
So the
Sorry,
plant,
store, no?
yeah, sari-sari means are different kinds. So the plants in the house, even though it's small, they're many and different. Right? Ay sari-sari.
You gotta help me out here.
Bahay kubo kahit munti ang halaman doon ay sari-sari. Singkamas at talong. Sigarilyas at
No idea.
mani.
shame here.
Sitaw, bataw, batani. You guys are looking at me like, what the hell is it?
It's a deep shame.
Deep shame. No,
I know.
It makes an interesting point about how I think there is, especially because of American colonialism, there's that sort of, especially just one generation in, there's far more prevalence of just being a pure English speaking child of a Filipino immigrant compared to other East Asian, Southeast Asian diaspora. And like, so well, this is a fun game. It's sort of, it does make me kind of feel like, yeah, this is something that I'm not experiencing. You know, I've started doing like, it was a shame I started Duolingo and Tagalog's not on there, but I started doing Spanish because it's the only thing that I could do that sort of nods to a little bit, like just certain words that just like lend across, but you don't find it.
Seriously, on Duolingo, you can't learn Tagalog, but you can learn Klingon.
You can learn Klingon.
no.
You can learn Klingon on Duolingo, and you can't learn Tagalog. What's that about, man?
That is
Duolingo,
that's
get on there.
absurd.
You
Come
can learn
on.
Latin, but not Tagalog, and you're like, come on, like.
I'm pretty sure they've even added whatever Daenerys Targaryen speaks. I can't remember what it is now.
The two fictional languages. Oh God.
It's like you, James Bradwell, with your 100% white school. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, there are other languages, not your language.
Not you.
100%.
I loved it. I love watching Game of Thrones, and every time I saw that, what is the most exotic country that they had? The one where what is that? That
One
kingdom?
with Oberyn.
Yeah, with
Martell.
Oberyn Martell.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Doran.
one day I'm gonna be
Dawn,
part of that. That's the only kingdom I can be part of.
Yeah, literally. The only diverse kingdom.
The only diverse with
Genuinely, I messaged my agent when I knew that they were going to go there, and was like, "This is the only place I can be in Game of Thrones." Okay,
Please.
Get me in there.
get me in.
Well, I read the books, and there was a role that we could have probably done, and then they didn't even write it into the show. And I was like, oh, come on, I could be Quentin Martell. Well, where is he? Like,
Oh, it was Quentin Martell. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I remember him.
Well, boys,
Sorry.
they're working on the prequel, so and it's all gonna be in the Kingdom of Dorne. So I think we'll see each other in some spotlight castings very soon.
Ooh, that would be lovely. See
All
some
right, so-
familiar faces.
Talk about the dream, boys. Talk about the future. Like, where do you see yourself as an actor, and where do you see the industry going long after Corona's gone, and long after we've screamed at the top of our lungs for us to be represented and be seen.
Yeah.
Whew, big question.
Yeah.
I mean, like, to start off, I think my general dream is, I think, not even related to anything remotely political, I guess, but like it's what every actor just wants to be able to have, like a jobbing career. And I guess it's because we ruminate on it. It's like what stops us so often can be the identity or the politics or what role's been created. And so, like, it's tied into, I would like just a steady career upon which I can, you know, build some kind of life outside of that desperate struggle that you sort of feel in those first years. And you can look back, and it's not just not impedimented by my heritage, but accentuated by my heritage. And that's
Beautiful.
You know.
Beautiful.
So that's me.
That's it. I think you said everything.
Yeah. Straight up. Straight up.
And also, one of us has to be in Agents of Atlas, right?
Oh yeah,
James needs to be in a Marvel film.
Yeah.
Get me Feige. We're here. We're waiting. Come on.
You know, get me a Marvel. You know, get me.
Seriously.
I want to do an advert for spam or something like that.
You had that. So
I kid you not.
Like accoutrement of like Filipino culture around me to remind me.
In Agents of Atlas, I'm probably giving it away, but in Agents of Atlas, right, in the like War of the Realms one, I was like reading, it's like the first one where they're all together, and they go, "Oh, guys, should we get something to eat?" And one of the things that's on there is spam silog, and they're there eating, and I was just like, "Oh shit, I feel seen, I feel seen, man."
Exactly. I tell you what, because there's so many. There are loads of Filipinos and Filipino American artists in Marvel that are writing up stories and drawing up characters, which is fantastic.
Yeah, man.
I mean, we're all over the world, and I think it's just gonna. I think one day we're gonna wake up and we're like, "Oh my god, everything is like Filipino invasion on Netflix, Disney." I think we're all gonna be. It's just gonna happen. Right. I have a great feeling about that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about that. Let's. I want you to give your best Filipino accent impersonation right now, because it needs to happen. I'll tell you what. I'll preface this with something. I was working with a very talented Filipino musical theater writer. He's based in New York. He's now a Filipino American, but he's a migrant, and he's writing really exciting stuff. Filipino stories in New York, in the center of musical theater. And he's getting a lot of traction, and I did a little workshop with him, and the subject of the Filipino accent came up, and I said, why deny it? We don't deny a Latin English American accent. We don't deny a Caribbean English accent. We don't deny all of the different accents in the UK. Why deny a Filipino accent when it's very real? And he was like, absolutely. So he wrote up the accent into the musical, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I think that's so exciting. That's so interesting. So come on, give me your best Filipino accent. We need to hear it. The world needs to hear it. We've heard James. Oh, go ahead. We've heard James Cooney, so he can start it off.
So like I feel like I've got so many, but there's one of my favorite stories is from a mate of mine who is a Filipino, and he was in the year below me at drama school. And he said, we were talking about the accent one day, and he said, you know that Filipino is the only accent where you can say Paul 4 times in one sentence, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, if you say Paul, be careful, or you will fall in the swimming pool, it becomes Paul, be careful, or you will fall in the swimming pool. Man, there it is.
Fantastic.
Man, and then the other one that I always go to, right? There's like my mom who is it's on my Instagram and all that. And then there's my uncle Tony, right? Who for whatever reason like did kung fu or karate when he was a kid, and he's probably like 80 years old now. But every time I would see him in the Philippines, he'd be like, James, oh sige, you hit me here. You hit me right there. Oh, okay, you do that one. You have to be strong, huh? And I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna hit you. You're like a 60-year-old man, but I'm gonna hit you in the stomach. I would love it. I love him.
I had an uncle just like that. I don't know why they like it. They like, oh, you hit me in the right. Hit me.
You hit me. You hit me right there. It's okay, huh? It's okay. Sige.
Well done. Come on, Bradwell. Let's hear yours. I'm saving Jeffrey for last because I'm saving Jeffrey for last.
Anticlimax, a massive anticlimax.
I know.
Well, I'll bridge in via one of my stories. I had my my Lola and Lola visited the UK in about 2008 or 9, and my Lola man had very few words. But one of the few things he would always tend to say is, whenever there's something on telly or whatever, he would just go, "What is that?" And like, they were just regardless of what it was, what is that? Was so general purpose. It was like, what does that mean? Who is that? Who is that person? Why are they saying this? And it's like, what is that? And there was this time when there was a squirrel on television or something. Oh no, we were on a walk and there's a squirrel, and he'd be like, "What is that?" And my dad would go, "That's a squirrel." And he goes, "Rabbit." Squirrel. squirrel, rabbit.
Love it.
But I think that was one of the things that my just learning my Lolo's few words was a great bridge into like the Filipino accent. But I did write a monologue while I was at Bristol with a Filipino accent. That was something I did do. I've been prompted by the conversations. I need to find it. I wrote it and I ended up using it when I applied for the Yellow Earth bursary.
Oh, fantastic!
The monologue I did was Filipino accent because I thought I want to represent what it is that is my Asian. What's my Asian that
I love that. That's
so
amazing.
that, and maybe you'll see it through a recording.
Oh, we need to hear that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I would love that.
You'll have to wait. You'll have to wait.
You will have to wait.
You'll have to wait.
The two households. Sandali lang. The two households of Per Barona. Both alike. All right, Juan, come on, let's hear you.
Oh, okay. I think I'll just go for the classic. Well, first off, ang kulit mo, or have you guys noticed this? Sorry, just on titas. Have you noticed that like whenever they want you to grab something, they do this. It's really. I've just noticed it. They go, wait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Over there, huh?
Yeah.
Over there.
Over there.
Yeah. Take a picture. Take a picture. Let's take a picture.
Oh my god.
I love it. Free.
I had my accent's not very good. I'm not gonna lie, but I had a
trust me.
Ninong who he didn't really say much, but he always used to ask me whenever there was food or something. He would just be like, you like, and then he would be like have some food, you like. And I remember also we were going. This was actually here going through a drive-through like McDonald's because we were hungry, and my dad must have been like, I was like, Dad, can I get a quarter pounder with cheese, please? And he's like, okay, cool. And he's driving through, and he goes, Can I get a quander founder, like a quander, you know? So you know how P's and F's like mixed up. And he was like, can I get a pillet of meal? So like a fillet of fish. And it was just kind of like, that's just like Filipino, like just like muddle up in your mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what I got. You should have left me for last.
No.
Can I get a pint of beer? A pint of beer, please. Okay. Now, all right. So before we go, I love this. What is the best tasting and the worst tasting Filipino dish that you've tried?
Ooh.
We can't end the show without talking about food.
Oh,
yeah,
true.
True.
The worst.
So my the worst is hard because I feel like a lot of it's good, man.
Yeah.
But my auntie in Cebu, well, it's actually more my brother's auntie, but she has like a barbecue stall in Cebu, and just like barbecued pork. That the secret ingredient I think is basically a whole lot of sugar.
Yeah. With everything.
But, oh man, that stuff is good. With a red horse beer and a bit of pork. Love it. But the worst, I don't know. Maybe it's just the smell of durian, like before going in a hotel.
Yeah, great shout. Great shout.
Just that whiff of tropical fruit when you enter a hotel.
Crazy.
Great shout.
I remember the first time my mum served me, I think she made mungo beans or something like that. And I remember not being prepared. I think I was quite young. And it was just like, I don't know, it wasn't what I wanted. Like, but I've been blessed, I've got a good, I'm a keen chef or keen cook at home at least. And so, I've got some adobo marinating in the fridge right now.
Oh, lovely.
The next peak experience, but learning how to make sinigang, learning how to make tinola, and those are like my home comfort meals. So like often now it doesn't have to be that good, but if I'm feeling a bit homesick, I'll cook Filipino food. I'll get the rice cooker on, and then that will be like the, But then for a top experience, I think it is like the rare opportunities I get to eat proper lechon.
Oh yeah.
Mang Tomas.
With Mang Tomas.
Yeah.
Mang Tomas.
The best sauce the best condiment.
Bradwell, how do you measure the water and rice?
I mean, like,
That's all you need, huh?
That's all you need.
I need first joint.
Just the first joint. How about you, Juan?
Oh, this is gonna be tough because I love all Filipino food.
Even balut, even dinuguan.
Oh, I love dinuguan. I love dinuguan. I'm not a big fan of the idea of balut, but I'd say my favorite Filipino dish is probably sisig. Probably tied up there with laing because I love the combination of the two so much. I think maybe the one I didn't like, I can't remember what it was. It was a dish that involved tripe, and I'm not a fan of tripe.
Kare kare.
It might have been a kare kare tripe because I usually like it with oxtail, but I think this version had tripe in it, and it did not sit well with me.
we got one of the top chefs of the Philippines watching our little podcast right now.
Oh, nice.
He's a big rock star chef, and one of the best meals that we've tasted before flying out was some food that he sent over. So thank you, Chef Sao. And Jeffrey, Sangalang.
I have many, but I think my favorite is probably caldereta. I don't know if you had caldereta.
Lamb.
Lamb or goat. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's quite a nostalgic thing for me because one of my first birthdays, we had it then, and then every time we have it now, it's just like amazing. But we don't have it too often. But when we do, it's just like, yes. And I don't really know what I don't like actually. I'd probably say balut just because of the idea of it. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it, really. But yeah, caldereta.
We need a whole banana leaf feast using our hands.
Yeah.
Kakamayan tayo eating rice. Look, I'm so thankful I got to chat with you. We're a little over time, and I apologize for that. But then it's such a good thing just chatting and seeing you guys. And I think I'm early days in my little career here in the UK, starting off. And just knowing that you guys are actors like you who look like me and who think like me and who speak like me and who sound like me and who just love the craft that we do like me. It's really inspiring. So thank you. I learned a lot, and I hope to see all of you on stage soon, or to be with you on stage. That would be even better.
That would be glorious.
Absolutely great. And maybe we'll just hang out after Corona's done. Once we've kicked this thing out of the way, we can all get together. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you guys.
Thank you so much.
Please keep in touch.
Lovely to meet you all.
And boys, just stay a bit. I mean, I'm gonna chat with you as we go offline. But then to everybody watching, I hope you learned something as much as I did. I love spending time with these guys. And just be yourself and embrace your difference. I think that's what's going to make you really, really shine. And it's a process. We're all learning how to accept our identity, and we're going to get there soon. And if you hang out with these guys and people like you, then it's going to make the journey a little bit more bearable. So thank you, and cheers.
Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat.
Salamat, sus. Be careful.
Be careful. Paul.
Be careful.
Paul.
Be careful.
Bye, guys. Ending broadcast.